Maybe let's begin with the fact that we have both met in Madeira. And I'm just curious to know what has brought you here. Out of all places, you have decided to stay here. So how come Madeira?
Due to my life and work, I was traveling extensively throughout the last 15 years. So, as you mentioned, I lived in over 35 countries, and that basically means that every 3 months on average for the past 15 or 17 years, I would live in a different place. And for the longest period during that time, I was trying to find the perfect spot, the perfect place to call home. And when you get spoiled by so many incredible cultures, so many incredible places, and your bar gets higher, it gets harder and harder to find that place which just ticks all the boxes perfectly. So one day I was invited to a conference called Web Summit in Lisbon. I was a visitor and had a great time in Portugal generally, felt like of all places I have traveled before, many of which were absolutely great, but were missing just something to feel like home. Portugal was the first one to kind of answer that need of balance between every single aspect of what makes me feel home in a new foreign country. And after spending some time in Lisbon post the conference, I was very keen on seeing that beautiful place I once saw on a video called Madeira. And basically, on a whim between my meeting in Malta, which came forward, and the end of the conference in Lisbon, I spent in Madeira expecting nothing, and the place just blew me away. In those 4 days, I felt like I found a gem, a place which until recently was populated only by either locals or an elderly population from the UK and Germany, not utilized by any remote workers or young people. And it was a pity because I could see people just like myself at the prime of their career, relocating, living, enjoying a place which is so full of life, so full of nature, such an incredible civilization that's combined with this lush greenery all around you. So, although I continued traveling for a few years after my first visit to this beautiful place, I definitely was continued thinking about it. And my dream was one day to come over and maybe convince one or two good friends to join. And the place is so incredible that those two people would be all I need for all my needs met and total happiness for a base to call home. When the pandemic happened, and that was fast forward a couple of years, 3, 4 years to be exact, it was an opportunity since Madeira decided to be the only green zone in all of Europe, meaning less regulations, less restrictions, no overall isolation requirements. And I had an idea of basically bringing all those interesting people I've met throughout 15 years of traveling around the world to this magical island, which I was always talking about ever since visiting for the first time, to a single location, a single hotel, which we rent together and make our big apartment. So we're technically flatmates who spend even the curfew hours together. So once that idea came to be, I made a deal with one of the largest hotels in Europe, which is called the Savoy Palace in Madeira, and brought a lot of those friends and clients and people I was collaborating with, lawyers and otherwise from all around the world, to Madeira, to be exact, 248 people, where we shared this experience for 6 months. And that basically solidified the first attempt to make Madeira a place for remote workers, digital nomads, individuals who are in the prime of their career, working remotely, and can enjoy the benefit of living on this island.
Wow, so this actually began just spontaneously because you wanted to see the island for what it is. And then this great idea came to you because you have noticed that it's lacking this diaspora, this age group of people living here. And from what I know and what I have heard, we are like more or less the first generation of young adults or maybe people in their 30s who have decided to relocate, live, and work here, and of course, do that remotely. So, of course, the whole island as a place is great for remote workers or digital nomads. It's beautiful location to stay, but I guess there's something else that makes it appealing for digital nomads. You have already mentioned the lack of regulations, which are to do with the COVID, but also probably there's another kind of a layer that made it suitable for people to work and live here. Is there such a layer? And if so, what kind of layer is it?
Absolutely. So one of the things which, well, is the main part of our business is taxes. What we do is make sure that entrepreneurs and remote workers don't or pay as little as possible in tax while moving to locations which they choose to live at, and combine that tax optimization with the immigration to the right location. And throughout moving around for 15 years, scouting for the best locations, the best programs, the best tax optimization methods, Portugal has always been on top, and Madeira took it to the next level. So, if you are a foreigner with an existing line of work or business which structures themselves right and move to Madeira or all of Portugal, but Madeira has some unique advantages which I'll expand on in a little bit. You basically are eligible to live tax free for 10 years in one of the most beautiful places in the world, but without any strings attached. So not only does Portugal allow for that leniency towards entrepreneurs moving to the country, they're also very much acceptant on people migrating. They are very keen on issuing visas to young entrepreneurs and are helping us actively. The government is actively helping us in recruiting and finding and scouting for and moving really talented and promising people to this country.